Well, Jan Golden, thank you so much for joining us on the Happiest Retirees podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
Oh, same here. And we were just talking about this, but Jan Golden is your real name, and you live near Golden, Colorado.
Yes, and I have a golden retriever, so
It just couldn't be more perfect.
right, you can't make that stuff up. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
How did you pull that off? Were you already living near Golden, or you're like, "Oh, my name's Golden, so I'm gonna move there"?
No, yeah, it was totally coincidental. So the whole thing, and then the fact that I ended up with a golden retriever was too. But it's just kind of funny now. I used to hate my name growing up, and then as I get older, in fact, I was married and had changed my name, and I recently changed it back about 5 years ago. And I'm
Oh.
like, it's a great name because it's easy to spell, it's easy to pronounce, everybody gets what it is. So it's a good stage name too. So
It really is. As someone with the last name Doolittle, I didn't like that growing up, but now it's an advantage because everyone remembers my name. Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, so, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you did during your primary working years? Just you can just kinda skim through and then because I really wanna hear more about what you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I spent about 35 years as a programmer in the IT arena, but as kind of a coder, developer, if you will. And as time went on and technology evolved, ultimately ended up as a web developer. But a lot of people will say, "Oh, then build my little website for me." But I was a team member in a large team of people, and someone who did the coding behind the scenes and not just applying content updates and things like that. So it was a
Okay.
great career to have. In fact, I was able to work part-time. I was a contractor and working from home for the past 15 years before it was even fashionable.
Wow.
And so,
Okay.
yeah, the career ended up later in life, providing me a lot of really great flexibility. I was working 3 days a week for like the past 5 years, which helped me be able to build this business. So
Okay,
it was a
and
great
I
career.
wanna get into that because one of your, big pieces of advice for future retirees was try transitioning with, like, a part-time role.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
compare that to, like, because I know people in your family that just quit cold turkey, right? And they kinda struggled with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, my path was more when I was 50, I'm 63 now. I just turned 63, but my both of my parents died within about 6 months of each other. And
Oh.
I remember thinking, wow, I think the legacy thing kind of kicked in. And also I was just like, I got to do something besides just working for another company and just being I was a parent and, spouse at the time. And I was like, I want to leave more in this world than just that. So I started to think about online businesses I could create on the side. And I settled on writing a blog with iPhone tips and tricks,
Okay.
which was really great experience. I had a strong following. I was good at giving tips. I wasn't so good at making money because I gave away all the tips. People were like, why would I take a course when they can just go back and read your newsletters and I have everything I need? So I had
Yeah.
fun with it. I did some coursework. I tried to sell some coursework, but ultimately I left the iPhone training up to Apple. It
Yeah.
got to be pretty rapid changing. And yeah, there was a lot of good things that came
And
out of it.
they
But
they do know how to make money, so you just go and leave that to them, I guess. They have
yeah,
no
it's like you
problem
could
making
train.
money.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the part that was interesting is that it exposed me to older adults and the lack of confidence they have in tech when I'm in the tech field. And it's like a lot of times the technology just doesn't work. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Nobody can use this, website that doesn't work or doesn't work on a phone or whatever. So my mission was to try to help older adults like really, have more confidence in tech. And then it got into workplace tech because of the technical divide. I myself was getting older and in this male dominated youth oriented field of coders, and so I was feeling the ageism and the come into play maybe even 10, 15 years ago. And so that's how I sort of got involved with ageism, and especially workplace age discrimination, because I think a lot of people feel that ultimately in their careers that, especially when you need to change jobs. That I think
Yeah.
LinkedIn has, you're at like 45 and you're too washed up to ever work again.
I saw that. I think I saw a headline about that.
Wow, I still have 20 plus good years,
Right. Yeah, you barely by the
thanks,
time
LinkedIn.
you get momentum going, you're too old, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's how I kind of got into became aware of ageism and age discrimination, and it's part of a seed that was planted that I'm working on now today. So
Well, it's interesting that you talk about the confidence of older people with tech. I've noticed my mom will ask me for help. And yeah, it's like she's actually pretty good at stuff, but she feels bad asking, which I don't mind,
right.
and then she'll be a little hard on herself about not being good at something, and I'm just thinking, you're probably better at this than I would be,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you're ahead of the curve, you know?
yeah. And I always tell people, they're not any smarter than you. They just know how to Google. They just know how to
Yeah,
Google the answer.
right.
So just figure out how to search for answers, and YouTube. You can learn anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that the dynamic my wife's a little bit younger than me, and even with that, I have to ask her for, like,
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
can tell I have a little son, and he's gonna be teaching us, so it's just kind of like the way it goes, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But they don't care about, backing up devices or screen protectors or anything, because, the parents will just buy them a new phone.
Right,
So
yeah, they don't have
if you
that
don't have
down.
any of the responsibility that goes along with it,
Right.
they're free. So anyway, it's a interesting, fun topic. I had a lot of fun with that business, but ultimately, it was just the one that was sort of catapulted me into what I'm doing now. So
Okay, and tell me what you're doing now, and the what the inspirational moment was, that you wanted people, you thought they were ready to hear a different message, right?
yeah, exactly. So I mentioned that I became aware of ageism, which is discrimination based on age, and it really impacts people in the workplace, but it also impacts people's mindset and their longevity. So there's research out by a woman named Dr. Becca Levy from Yale University, and she wrote a book called Breaking the Age Code, and it basically proves that your mindset impacts your longevity by up to 7.5 years, and
Wow.
it impacts your health and wellness and everything about you. And I think it makes sense to me, because I see peers of mine, that either once, especially when they get towards retirement age, they either decide that they're done, they're going to sit on a rocking chair and watch all the TV they want all
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
or they think it's like the best time in their life. They finally have, the flexibility and freedom to move into this next chapter of life with, a lot of rigor. And I feel like there's kind of two distinct mindsets. And the former that believes that life is over at retirement, they do end up getting more isolated,
Oh, I
lonely,
imagine, yeah.
more health issues. And everybody knows people who are either on one side or the other. The pro-ager who basically embraces the age that they are, and then those that blame age for everything. So my I started getting back to how I launched this business during COVID. Like everybody else, I had a little extra time, and I have a graphic design background. And the organization in Denver here that I was volunteering for, called Changing the Narrative, is a pro-age advocacy group, and they had a anti-ageist birthday card contest of all
Wow.
things. And so, yeah, I was like, and I was helping to volunteer with, sponsoring the contest, but I started Googling clever, funny, snarky birthday cards, and don't do that because
Oh, there's a million of them.
there's,
You're, like, bombarded
and
with
it's like,
those.
yeah, it's damn year old,
Yeah.
you're 1 year, happy birthday, you're 1 year closer to the sweet release of death,
And
like what?
I've noticed they start doing that at, like, when people turn 30. I mean, those
Yeah.
cards are everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fashionable in our culture to make fun of getting older, but it's actually very harmful too. And what was missing was cards that actually aren't afraid of talking about age, but in a positive light. Because there's also, you could just skirt the issue altogether by giving them a card with a picture of a dog or a food pun or something.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah.
Two safe
So I
topics.
just Yes, exactly. So I decided I started with some wordplay and flipping the script on some ages messages and concepts, and just created some greeting cards and put them up for sale on Etsy.
Oh,
And they
okay.
were a big hit. This was early in 2021. And about 6 months into it, I decided that I really liked the business. I really enjoyed the creativity around it, kind of landing a message that made sense with people. But I also realized that the greeting card industry is a huge industry. I think there's billions of cards sold each year. I think it's like 10 billion or 20 billion
Wow.
cards
Oh my
sold each year. It's a
gosh.
huge industry. So I realized that I needed to learn as much as I could about the greeting card industry so I could get my cards in stores, because on Etsy, one card at a time, it was, a lot of work to make $20 in a month, So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So anyway, I immersed myself in the greeting card industry, had a great time doing that. There was a greeting card association I became a member of, started volunteering, and then I ended up exhibiting at my first trade show.
Oh.
So I got myself out in front of stores. And so, yeah, the rest is kind of history. I keep one foot in the pro age advocacy community. And so there's a big industry for supportive elder care and senior services, nursing home, assisted living, all the technology related to supporting older adults. So I also started doing like buttons and stickers,
Oh,
you're
really?
not too old, is that too late? Yeah. So I have a whole part of my business is all around just making people, having buttons and stickers declaring, rethink how you think about aging, just pro age swag, basically,
Yeah.
for people to basically declare, that it's not so bad getting older. So anyway, there was a big market there, and the greeting card industry as well. I've had a lot of success with my designs. In fact, I was able to get a couple of cards on the shelves of Barnes and Noble and Paper Source within like a couple of years.
Really?
And yeah, most recently, my cards are licensed all across the US and in the UK, Australia, New Zealand through UK Greetings and through Calypso cards. So anyway,
That's huge, isn't it?
and
I mean, to get
yeah, it is.
yeah.
Yeah, so I've had some success. So it's a combination of, I talk about it when in preparing for this interview. You asked a lot of great questions about retiring, but for me, it finally hit the sweet spot of being something that, I love to do. I always have loved dabbling in graphic design. I'm good at it. I've spent a lot of my career, I'm really familiar with tools, all the Adobe tools and, Photoshop, Illustrator, all those. Um, the world needs it. These messages were not out there. So and of course the population is aging. So that helps as well. And then, I figured out how to make money at it. So I'm finding myself like 3 years in saying, this is great. I wouldn't have ever imagined being in the greeting card industry, 5 years ago, but here I am.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm fascinated. I've always been fascinated with greeting cards, and my aims were less noble than yours. I just thought maybe I could come up with some jokes or something. But
Yeah.
but it was hard for me to figure out how one would jump in. So it sounds like you found your way in through these trade shows and volunteering, and did you just meet people who publish the cards? You mentioned the word licensed.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. So I knew I found a course that kind of fast tracked you on how to sell the stores. And I kind of bit the bullet and took that course. It was maybe a couple $1,000s, but I knew that it was gonna, kind of get me where I needed to be. And that was a great, great thing to do. But then I was ready to do my first trade show, which by the way, I needed to have like 50 to 75 card designs,
Wow, okay.
in different categories, and they really helped you figure out like this is what a store is looking for and here's what you need to do to appeal to stores. So before I went to my first trade show, which was probably 1 year after I started, I decided I want to know some people. I want to have some friendly faces in the crowd, when I got there. And so I volunteered on a few committees for the Greeting Card Association, which was the organization that was sponsoring, the biggest greeting card show of the year. And so that ended up being a great idea as well, because then, I have was just using my skills and talents. And I think this is a great tip for people too. It's like, find the people already doing it. You know, there's a lot of people willing to help and help me along the way. There's a really great community for that. And then by the time I got to the trade show, I already knew half a dozen makers like myself, but I also knew the people on stage doing, the intros and the keynotes and things
Really?
like that, because they were all part of the organizing committee. So yeah, it turned out to be a really great strategy. So
So it's almost like when you're starting your career and you take an internship, or it sounds like you
yeah,
sort of did that. That
yeah,
way you're
exactly.
around everybody. Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
are the people with the big shots who make the decisions, to pick cards, are they there too? And
Yes.
are they going
Yes.
around saying like, "I want you, I want you"?
Yeah, exactly. And you have to display everything you're doing, and you always have a first time, so you just sort of bite the bullet and do it. And you have your kind of first time doing anything, right? But you have to put yourself out there. I look back at some of my original cards now and I'm just like, oh, I hope no one ever sees those. But but you also learn from other people that are there exhibiting. They're always looking for fresh new ideas. And I was getting some attention just for the uniqueness of my messaging. In fact, it's pretty funny because like two women that were exhibiting next to me on either side had some of the damn your old cards in there,
Oh, no.
so which they were kind of all over the place. So it was like, here I am, and here's an alternative.
Right.
So, but it was cool because by the time they weren't aware of the impacts, and it was very interesting because a lot of people who support other social causes, people of color or LGBTQ communities or the feminist movement, when they realize that ageism especially hurts your loved ones, by giving them those kind of messages, I've been able to influence other makers in the greeting card industry as well, which is
Wow.
really powerful. And those two women actually took down those cards, at the end of the show and retired them, which is great, which is where all those cards should go. They should be retired.
They should be recycled
Set
and
out
put in
just
the
failed.
compost. Yeah. Wait, so these people saw your cards and then you talked to them and then they decided not to do the age?
Yeah, it's a little more than that too, because I had, I have an Instagram presence and I'm actually active on LinkedIn as well. And so, of course, knowing that, and then, my previous stint with iPhone training, I knew I needed to be on social media. So I was comfortable there. I was comfortable being on camera, doing video, things like that. And so I had a pretty strong social media presence early on too. And so I realized there too that people were following me, and I would, here's some new cards I've made, but then here's the story behind the card and here's why it's important to have these types of messages, kind of thing. So that's a place where I was able to kind of fill in the backstory
Okay.
um of my line as well. But yeah, so it's been a really great journey to put in all the effort and then to get people to respond the way you want and to get, the reaction is awesome.
Well, for sure. And so just so I'm clear, it's called Age Friendly Vibes. That's the company. Is that on the card?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's and that's my website too, agefriendlyvibes.com. And that's where I am on Instagram and LinkedIn. I was going to call myself Age Friendly Cards, but then I quickly realized I was going to do like stickers and buttons and some other things. And so I'm like, let's go with it's a whole vibe.
Why
So
why lock yourself into one merch item?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so at this point, are you in enough stores that, I mean, I don't get too much into the finances, but in your retirement, it's one of your sources of income is this?
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be, it just started about a month ago with these two licensing deals, which really provide me with a passive income stream. So I sold my designs, 25 of them, and they're producing the card and
Oh,
through their sales channels distributing them. And so right now I'm selling on my website onesie choosy cards to individual people, but the distribution through the stores and the larger markets are handled by these large companies that do that. So
wow.
that's and yeah, that's a great shift in my business as of late. But it came 3 years in, which was you actually by standards pretty quick to get a
Okay.
licensing deal, at a 3 year mark. But and I really didn't know that was um I just kept open to possibilities. And I think in preparation for this interview as well, when I look at my peers, which part of it too is the intergenerational relationships, I've got people of all ages that are doing this business, but my runway is a little shorter. And so
Because
I'm
you're not
not in
20
my,
years old or what
yeah,
or
I'm not
yeah.
30 or 40
Yeah.
thinking I'm going to be in this business for 20, 25 years. I'm thinking, I got to make a go of this by in 5 years and try to figure out how to get out of it in another five. And so I don't have it. So that kind of makes me, I don't know if it's taking more risks or just sort of, and I set myself up not needing to make money and,
Oh,
being realistic about that.
you mean you had saved enough before, you mean? Or
Yeah, that and I kept my web development job, my 3 day a week job. In fact, I just quit that about 6 months ago.
and that's because you had started doing well enough with the cards? Or
Yeah,
oh, wow,
exactly. Yeah.
okay, that's
I could see
great.
the path on, getting to the point where I could, not really replace that income, but I knew things were working and I could continue to build. And I think that's important too. That's sort of a personal decision for everybody. So the greeting card business is really a side hustle for me. And that's another great recommendation that I have for people later in their careers is just to start playing around with things that you like to do, things that you love to do. I thought about thinking about the things that you do in life where you get so immersed on them that you lose track of time. you know,
Those are the best, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so the more, you can recognize that and then the more you can do of that, whether it's gardening or riding your bike or whatever it is that you can do, just kind of try to do more of those things that get you immersed in what you're doing. And then I think it's not a chore, to do it,
Well, exactly, and do you find that making greeting cards and working with age-friendly vibes does that for you? You lose track of time sometimes?
Yeah, but that the reason that's important is that it's still a business to run and I've got to wear all the hats.
Do you do all the
But
accounting and all that? You do all of that?
yeah, I do, I have tools that help QuickBooks and things like that, but I have to fulfill orders and pack and
Mhm.
ship, you
Oh,
know.
right,
So
yeah.
I have help doing that. I need to, be on social media. I have to write and blog and figure out how to articulate. And I happen to like to write and things like that. So that part was good for me as well. But yeah, that financial and accounting and forecasting
Marketing.
and
You're the
all
market.
that stuff. Yeah, exactly. And just strategically deciding what trade shows to go to and what segment of the business you're going after, all the things that you need to do to be a successful entrepreneur. But I think, I've been able to draw on my experience through my career and then also from that iPhone training side
Mhm.
hustle I did. I think I mentioned this to you too, but the thing that really inspires me is some of they're mostly women. There's a few men in the industry, but, they'd have a few toddlers at home and a day job, and they're building a green card business and they're doing it at night after they put
I
their
don't
kids
know
to bed
how. I don't know
or,
how. Yeah.
on the weekends or whatever. So anyway, I was very inspired. Like, it's like I can certainly find a couple hours a day or carve out some time to work on this business. So that part was like super inspiring. Is just seeing other people that were making it happen.
Well,
So anyway, I think if you wanted, I don't know.
oh, yeah, well, also real quick, I was gonna say for you could have your shipping department for your company because is it your your sister worked for UPS, or you had 2, like, shipping
Yeah.
people in your family who retired, I think, so they might be looking to pack
Yeah,
up some
exactly.
boxes.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, my husband retired from FedEx, and he's we call him my fulfillment specialist. He fulfills orders.
Yes.
I'm like, here. But actually, it's interesting to bring that up too, because just the way your career and your life unfolds. I had my IT career got interrupted when I was in my 40s. I ended up right around September 11th. I got laid off from a job that I had, and because the whole company kind of stopped working, not too much dissimilar to COVID. And I was a hiring manager, and I thought, well, I could find a job right away. And then September 11th happened, and nobody was hiring for a while, and things like that. So I had to reinvent myself. And just kind of retool and try to figure out some different things to do. My sister, on the other hand, and my husband, who I met later in life, but they had these long careers where they were just working for these companies, very successful, but just going to work and doing their thing. And, both of them worked very hard at what they did. And so by the time retirement day came, it was like, woohoo,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going to sleep for a year.
They were the rocking chair mentality, right, that you mentioned
Yeah,
earlier?
exactly, or just I'm gonna rest, It's
Yeah.
like they didn't have any time to think about anything else that they would do, any other interests or their hobbies because, in that field, it was seasonal. Anyway, it was just both of them coincidentally just happened to be working at jobs that were very intense. But I think then you kinda get done resting and it's like, now what?
Yeah.
What
Exactly.
what's next for me? And then, also the other big piece is how do I have the discipline to create my own job, decide what to do next? You're the person dictating what you do next,
Right.
So you can choose to do nothing or
Well, it's kind of the greatest thing and also the scary thing because, no one's giving you something to do. So you could potentially
yeah,
just be depressed or overwhelmed, or if you
yeah,
do it right, it's better, but if you don't, it could be scary.
yeah. In the last, probably 5 years of my life, I worked 3 days a week as a contractor. And so on those 3 days, I had my start time and my end day, and I didn't think. I just did whatever I was asked to do. And then, of course, I thought, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
then I was able to kind of in the margins there just figure out that I need to actually put tasks on my calendar. I have to block out time. I have some work that's like deep work that I need to really think about, and I need to, you know, have more time than that. Anyway, it was just I learned like sort of time management skills, and I was able to sort of experiment with this entrepreneurial path, and figure out how to make that work for me. So by the time I was transitioned, it's like I already knew I have to do a lot of planning and stuff and figure out and know what I'm going to do in a day or a month or a week.
Well, yeah, I so it's interesting because I think everyone, or at least the old mentality was to get one of those jobs like your husband or sister had where, it's locked in and you're not gonna get let go, or and there's a lot to say for that. But I started in entertainment, and there's no way to really work in entertainment without getting fired a lot because the show ends or you're
Yeah.
so I guess what I'm getting at is my lack of consistent success is really gonna come in handy for me once retirement gets
Yeah.
here because I've learned how to
Yes.
do
Yeah.
it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I think there's a lot of people in that, scenario too. So that's sort of the traditional view of retirement is like I built up either maybe a pension if you're lucky still, or, you're definitely of retirement age, but you've got enough money now to live, but you don't have the, the mental, the skills or you don't, it's really hard to figure out what your next is, for a lot of people. So
Yeah. I don't know if you coined this word, but I love it. It's instead of retirement, it's more of a rewirement.
there's a card for that. I do have a card for
Oh,
that.
did you create that? You made that up?
I don't know. I think I've heard it too. It's
Oh,
not that uncommon. Like most words, somebody has said them somewhere somehow, but providing context around it. But I do really feel like it's more of a rewiring, of just kind of thinking about. what you're going to do next or how you're going to spend your time, which is one of your most valuable assets is your time and energy, right?
I that may have to be the title of this episode, something with rewirement. It's just so good.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you're really it kind of says it all of how to look at it, you know?
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I feel like I really set that's what I do like to talk with people, especially that are in more traditional careers, just more about what are your plans? Like, what are you thinking about stepping into? Like, are you, even just starting to volunteer or just explore your hobbies and interests with a little bit different, lens on it can really help. Or start writing or start finding a cause that you're passionate about that you want to get more involved in. There's a lot of different ways to start exploring what might be good for you to do next. But
I know that as people reach that age, they are asked about retirement. When are you gonna retire? Blah, blah, blah. And that annoys you, which I totally understand. You had a good
yeah,
comparison for it. It's like asking a 30-year-old woman when she's gonna have a baby or something, which right?
yeah, exactly. Especially in the ageism circles and the pro age advocacy, like a lot of people, especially with people who want to work and they're either able to work or they just want to keep working because they love what they're doing. But just having this age of when you get to be 60 or 65 saying, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire?
Yeah.
And it's really a personal decision. Some people can't afford to retire, like all the things that I just mentioned. But if somebody wants to bring up the subject, they'll bring it up to you. Just like somebody who's 30 years old that's thinking about starting a family, they'll bring it up to you. But hopefully, people that are listening to this or people in your audience aren't going up to young women and saying, when are you going to have a baby?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Which family members still do that maybe,
Oh,
but it can be very complicated for people and it can be very painful. There can be a lot of layers to it. So I like to, whenever somebody asks me that question, just kind of say, well, I don't know if I want to share that with you, or
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's complicated or whatever, because I want to continue working or like I said, I don't know the retirement, the definition, the traditional definition, I understand what it is, but I don't feel like it applies to me, especially somebody who's ramping up this business right now. And I want to have the energy and mindset to just keep going for another 5 to 7 years, So
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned
yeah.
that you with your shorter runway, part of that plan is getting out in a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
What makes you want to get out? You already know you want to, sit on a beach somewhere, or what's making you wanna get out?
Yeah. And with everything, this is a great topic as well, because with everything that you pick up to do later in life, you have to think about what's the practical consequence of this? And for me, it's I need to be in a place to ship orders.
Oh,
I need to be, yeah. So I have online store that's open. And so I need to be in Denver, Lakewood. I can't really bring all my inventory with me and ship on the road. If I want to go, and we do travel somewhat, but if I want to take more than a week off, I've got to change my shipping timeframes, closed out my shop. I also have to find someone else to come in and take over for me. It's getting a little bit easier, but that's sort of
right.
what I mean as well. It's like I found myself chained to the deck a little more. That's kind of equated to somebody who like wants to open a restaurant or a coffee shop or something. It's
Yeah.
like you've got to be there.
Right.
You're the one who's got to be there until you can get to the point where you can hand it off. And when I say I just want to get more out of the day-to-day operations and the person who's making the decisions, and that just be able to be there's a path in this field to where you can just create designs or be like a consultant and advise people, and then they go make the stuff and produce it
Exactly.
and sell it,
Maybe you'll become such a conglomerate that you'll just have people doing that. They'll
Yeah,
be doing that at the
exactly.
warehouse, and you'll be on a
Yes,
boat.
exactly. And I'll be like, "Oh, excuse me, my cell phone,
Yeah.
isn't working on this sailboat I'm on,"
Here's my genius
So
idea. Now make it happen, you know?
yes, exactly. In fact, I know a woman who was born into a greeting card family she's 25 and she works from Bali and she just sort of does that. And she has her team of designers and I want to be like her
Oh,
when I
I
grow
know,
up,
me too. She was born in there's a greeting card family, like, you're born into
Oh, yeah, there is.
really,
Yeah.
it's like the
Well, there's
Rockefeller
people,
of greeting
yes,
cards. Is her
there's
last name
people who went
Hallmark or what?
maybe, yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
Seriously, yeah, it's kind of like that type of
Oh
situation
my
where,
gosh.
the family, the grandparents started something and her immediate parents are way into it and very successful, large businesses. And then she's just following in the family footsteps, but she's working from Bali and I'm not. So,
Right. You're gonna get there, Jan. You're gonna get there.
yeah. But, that's where it gets back to if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you like what you're doing, and you love what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work and you're excited to wake up in the morning to do it. So it kind of makes those kind of sacrifices all worth it. But that's the part in hopefully within the next 5 years that I'll be completely out of is being the one that has to be back in a certain location to ship orders, or
Yeah.
oversee that.
Well, you had said for the first time in your life, you feel ikigai. You wanna
Uh-huh.
go into that a little bit? Tell us what that means.
Yeah. Ikigai is a Japanese concept. I don't know if you're familiar with the Blue Zones.
Oh, yeah, Dan
Are you
Buettner?
familiar? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. I'm on the Retire Sooner network, and it's Wes Moss. He's our hosts our flagship show, Retire Sooner. He's a huge Dan Buettner fan, so I know all about him,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I love I love them too. It's one of my passions, just the physical activity, the mental activity around that, the diet, and you moving your body, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
one of the things, the longevity, especially with the people in Japan, is this concept of ikigai, which is kind of the reason for being or the reason for waking up. But it's finding the sweet spot in the what you're good at, what you love to do, what you can make money at, and what the world needs. And so, like, if you're good at something, but you really don't like doing it, um, then that doesn't help you. Like, I could be good at graphic design, but I don't like it,
Right.
or
Yeah.
yeah, or I could be. A lot of people do this, and especially in the greeting card industry, they love graphic design. They're good at it, but the world doesn't need another birthday card with a balloon on it. So
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah, or they're very scattered on they can't figure out what the world needs. And for me, when I started, I didn't really know how I was going to make money at it, but I could see that people were making money at it. And I mean enough to kind of make a go of it because again, the price point is low and you need to get into volume and things like that. So I was just, kind of thinking through like, can I, and it wasn't like I didn't stop or anything, but I was always constantly saying, I can't just keep selling one card at a time. I'm not going to get anywhere,
Right. It's a lot of work, not a lot of
doing
payoff.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So once I kind of started getting those pieces in place, then the whole thing really fell into place. So yeah, I think that's a good thing for people, especially when they're trying to figure out their retirement and like their what's next. And I talked through this with both my sister and my husband, and especially my sister, because she wants to start some entrepreneurial venture. And she
Mm.
had an idea, for example, of, making toffee because her friend's mother's neighbor has a great toffee recipe. And I'm like, well, do you like to eat toffee? It's like, she doesn't. She doesn't like
Oh,
candy or sugar or anything, and it's like,
okay.
does the world really need another toffee? I was being nice about it, but it was like, just because you can do something or you can understand all the pieces, parts, or you want to manufacture a food or something like that, um, if that makes sense, it's like you can really use that ikigai concept to sort of every now and then, once a year, every couple times a year, sit down and say, if something's amiss, it's like, is it because something's out of balance here, basically,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, and that must be hard for you, Jan, because you're good at everything, but not everything necessarily interests you, you know?
Yeah, I can do just I can learn. My strength is that I can research and learn and figure out things, and it's because of my web development background, and I adapted to tech early compared to other older adults in my generation because they were off doing other things. And if you
Yeah.
didn't happen to have tech exposure in your career, then, but I was building the tech, So
Right. So
I
you
think
were
that,
definitely aware of it. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, I think I'm very confident that I can figure things out basically, which helps me appear to. But again, I don't like doing all of it. I don't. And it doesn't, if it doesn't feel important to me, then I get really bored with it right away and I don't want to do it. So it has
Exactly.
to feel important too.
And I would imagine, yeah, because I have a friend who's sort of like that. She's good at everything and follows through on everything, but because of that, she's almost hesitant with certain things because she thinks if I'm gonna do that, I know I'm gonna do it hard enough to make it good, but I don't even care about that.
Yeah.
So I'm just I need to walk away from this.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that was like my, the iPhone training was a perfect example because I could learn how to do it. I did it really well. I created courses and I did the whole thing, but I couldn't get paid for it and the world didn't need me to tell them, what to do. They did because they wanted to just be able to call me up and say, "How do I get over this one hump that I have?" They wanted me
For
to be a
free.
hotline
And
for
then they
free.
like
Yeah.
that you didn't charge them enough. Yeah.
Yeah, and so by the time I gave away so many good tips by the newsletter, so I had like $100 course that was like 6 or 8 weeks to kind of take you through all the settings on your iPhone that you needed to know. And I couldn't get any of it. I just signed up for that. They're like, I would not spend. I'm not going to spend time. I am you. Why would you spend?
You're like, "Thanks."
So, yeah. So that
Oh.
was an example where I went way down the path with that. I ended up quitting my day job to make a go of that at the end, and it was a painful,
Oh, man.
and I'm on the other side of it now, but it's like it was a grinding into kind of being stubborn on I can make this work and the world needs it and the whole thing. And then finally I was just like, I'm tired, I'm done.
Did you have to go
So
back to your day job after that once you realized you that wasn't
yeah.
good? Oh, wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so you had to restart.
Yeah, I was a web developer and I had a couple contracts and it was kind of bouncing around, kind of not unlike what you were talking about with your gigs. So we'd have a project that would wrap up and then sometimes you'd stay on for the next project.
Oh, I
Sometimes
see.
they'd
Yeah.
switch out. So I sort of had a natural cycle of 1 to 2 year gigs that were going on. So anyway, I had to go back with my tail between my legs going, oh, that thing didn't work out.
You're right, right.
But then like every relationship or anything in life, and after you're away from it for a while, you can look back and say, "Oh, I learned some things,
Exactly, yeah.
valuable. That was quality building. It built a
Right.
lot of character." Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, well, so this show was originally gonna be called The Core Pursuit Finder, and maybe we coulda had you do the graphic design of, like, a Sherlock Holmes looking for the core
Yeah.
pursuits, but anyway, so I do wanna hear about some of your core pursuits, which are, hobbies on steroids, things you really love doing, and if you
Yeah.
wanna just weave that into your perfect typical day, that might work.
Yeah, that sounds great. Along the way, also, we talked about the blue zones and mentioning that. And I just, especially when something like that is backed by research or like there's these people that are living a long time and let me figure out what they're doing kind of thing. So probably back in the time when my parents both passed away from like long-term like chronic illness, I decided I wanted to be healthy. I was always pretty healthy, but so I decided to intentionally be more active and move and walk and, do some things like that because I could be pretty sedentary with my day job. But in the past 5 years, I started doing strength training
Oh.
and kind of cardio. So I do that 3 times a week. I finally started like lifting weights and stuff. So I'm in a class at my local rec center. So
Oh,
that's been huge for me because I've improved my strength. It's helped me sleep better, everything
really?
else just kind of works better. I think my attention span is better, my focus. I don't want to say better, but I've really I'm really focused and I have a pretty good attention span and I sleep well. So I think those pieces are just because I'm moving more physically. And then I think that helps you just be more mindful of what you're putting into your body. We're basically in a plant-based diet in this household, and my husband has been for a really long time. And so that helps as well. And so we cook our own food, and we eat pretty clean and pretty healthy most of the time. So that all helps with making everything else work as well. So honestly, during the week, we just keep into our routines and spend a lot of time. I basically get up for a 5:30 a.m. class.
It's called body pump,
I start,
right? What does
yeah,
that
it's a
mean? What?
Les Mills. It's from Les Mills. Maybe some of your audience members will know that. It's I think they're from some Scandinavian country they started, but
Oh,
it's a regimen and a program that is all science based and research based, but it's a hour long basic circuit training kind of thing. So you do squats and lunges and push ups and arms and overhead and all like 7 different areas of your body. So you basically get a full body workout in 1 hour. So
mm.
I have a class
In one
that I
hour.
do that
Okay.
three. Yeah, I do that 3 times a week, and that's really changed my strength and you know everything. If I was with you, I'd offer to arm wrestle you right now.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd accept the offer. I haven't been to
We
Body
also so
Pump
then
lately, so I
Yeah, and I started that 5:30 a.m. time slot when I was doing multiple jobs, and it was a great way to get up in the morning and get going. And I got home by like 6:30, quarter to 7, I could kind of start my day and routine. I'm a morning person. That really works for me. So we have a dog, and I walk the dog.
the Golden
Then
and
in the morning,
Golden.
that
You walk the Golden and
yes,
Golden
exactly.
around Golden.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So that's about a 30-minute, kind of get outside walk kind of thing. And then I usually will start my day, around that time, but I'll have especially my morning, I'm pretty protective of my mornings. Anything before, I'm better in the morning. So that's when I try to get most of my work done. And then afternoon, I'll save for like shipping or fulfillment or meetings that I can zone out on and don't have to pay attention to.
Who are these meetings with the distributors or I mean with the
No, I'm involved with a couple of organizations, and
oh,
I'm on committees, and I do also do some training. I take training. I keep up on industry trends and things like that. So, um, that type of thing. I'm a pretty big lifelong learner as well. So I
oh,
want to always be keeping up, with industries and trends and things like that. So
a student of life.
yes, but I don't work evenings and I don't work weekends. I do have 3 grandchildren that live
Oh, you
nearby.
do?
Yeah, and so I'm very involved with their lives as well. In fact, on Thursdays, I watch them. I have since they were born. So that's even when I was
Oh,
working all through those years. So that's been great. They're
wow.
10, 8, and my daughter just had another one. So I have a 1-year-old who I don't, it's not mine, but you know what I mean? So
Right, right, right.
I'm like, they're like, we're going to have another baby. I'm like, yes.
And but that means when your daughter was 30, you weren't saying, "When are you gonna get pregnant?" You just let her
Yes,
do it.
exactly.
Yeah.
She was yeah, she was just doing it.
Yeah.
So, of course, being a grandparent, not everybody has that opportunity, but that's a big joy, and it's great to be a part of their lives. So, just enough that they know me and, but not enough that I'm, like, feeling the burden of it all. So and
Yeah.
my daughter works part-time on that day too, so but I get a consistent, chunk of time with them one-on-one, which is awesome.
Isn't that yeah. So you have 1 daughter, or how many adult children do you have?
I have a son and a daughter. Yeah.
And the daughter lives nearby. Where does the son live?
Yeah. He lives in Ventura,
Oh,
California.
yeah,
Kind of
that's
what about
near
you?
me.
Outside.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
we do a lot we surveyed, a lot of retirees to see where their children lived, and we found, at least in our group, the happiest retirees, they live near at least half of their adult children, so it seems like you hit that mark.
Yeah, and that's a great point because I kinda hesitate to move away. We, kinda live where we are, and then we feel like we can go travel, and we have a mountain home up in Grand County, which is about 2 hours away on a
Oh,
lake, so we get to go up and every weekend and, get away up there, so that gives us our
yeah.
mountain fix,
Well, I've
and
also
so
seen some data that the happiest folks live near water, so you're hitting all these marks.
Yeah. I grew up in Minnesota, so, there's, 10,000 lakes
Oh,
there, so
yeah.
there was a lot of water. So, yeah.
Right, which is why the Los Angeles Lakers are called the Lakers because they were in Minnesota, right? And then the
Oh,
before
nice. That's right. Yes.
yeah.
Yes, 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 exactly.
Yeah, okay, okay. And so then you've got the kids, you've got the water. Everything else is copacetic, it seems like.
Yeah, and then we just got into mountain biking. I used to
Oh.
mountain bike when I was little, yeah, little, much younger. Um, and we like to we're not afraid to pick up new hobbies as well. My husband did his first sprint triathlon at age 68. So
Oh my
um,
gosh.
he's gotten into swimming. So we're pretty active. We like to hike. And we also play pickleball like everybody else, which we love to do. And I'm starting to get more into golf.
Oh, you are?
So yeah, so we definitely we save time for hobbies and other interests like that too, because it's social and you get out, you're active,
Yeah.
and so we definitely love to do that. So I would say my passion killers are those things, but it's all around. I'm pretty careful about not doing things that are going to drain my energy and make me sedentary.
Right.
I kind of my hobbies and interests are all around like, you know, trying to keep moving and
Yeah.
trying to keep connected with people. Yeah, I just want to feel, good, especially going back to my parents. And, my mom had a stroke and 8 years prior to her death. And my dad had pulmonary fibrosis from being a drywaller, inhaling sheetrock dust his whole life. So they both had chronic illness and kind of weren't real healthy the last 10 years of their lives. So I just also want to take care of my body. And, that's why the blue zones piece is so appealing to me because, I don't mind living a long life as long as I'm healthy and mentally there and all that, So I just I think what you do now at this age in your 50s and 60s really dictates, the rest of your life and how that's going to go. So
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Jan, is there anything else you'd wanna give as some parting advice for other people looking to be as happy and healthy as you are?
it's all an illusion. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do have a phrase that really makes a difference, especially as you get older, just to remember that you're never too old, and it's not too late. So for people who think, oh, that's passed me by and I can't do that thing, you might do it a little differently than you would have when you were younger,
Yeah,
but you can find examples of people doing just about anything,
yeah.
well into their 80s and even into their 90s. So, you're never too old. It's not too late. So,
If you do some body pump and some rewirement, you can be as happy as Jan Golden.
hey,
Well, Jan, thanks so much for joining us on the Happiest Retirees podcast.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks for your time, Ryan.